Alex, when you talk about your the volume of business that West Coast does, I kind of want to move into what tools are you seeing? Whether it's Skype for Business or what have you. What are you seeing having? Which of the tools do you think is having the greatest impact on businesses?
Well, again, I can answer in two ways. Firstly, from our own business, we talked about remote working as an example. We are definitely remote work. We have many offices around the UK. We employ 1,300 people across the UK and Ireland. And we find that actually the collaboration tools that we use are pretty important to us as a business. In terms of what actually that we are selling, what we find is that clearly Microsoft Office flies out the door in terms of how it is licensed and how it is consumed. That is the big change in the market at the moment, as you see the vast majority of business now being moving to the cloud and using an Office 365 license from the cloud and generally from Microsoft's own servers as opposed to another data. And Microsoft themselves said that basically large enterprises in the UK, about 95% of these guys are already using Office 365, whereas only around about 35% of the SMB channel are using these Office 365 and some of the tools. So the opportunity in terms of growth is huge there. If I could move on to perhaps Dynamics as a really interesting area where we've adopted a number of dynamic tools, including CRM. Our experience here is pretty mixed, actually. Microsoft really want to drive this particular focus in Dynamics. But what we find is that there's just not enough partners helping them do so. And when I look at our own experience here at West Coast, we really needed the strength of a good partner to be able to change the culture, which Anne was talking about earlier. It's such an important element of your Dynamics adoption that we found that it was extremely difficult to be able to do that. And we didn't have a good enough partner to be able to help us make that cultural change, which I thought was so interesting. If we look at the number of partners that Microsoft themselves in the UK are trying to get trained up on Dynamics, there is just not nearly enough to be able to meet Microsoft's own expectations and growth expectations. So that hopefully gives you some aspect of what's going on in the market and what's going on at West Coast as well.
I'd like to explore that just a little bit more because you've got this suite of tools that for organizations to effectively adopt them takes some good partnership relationships, right?
It's the secret of Microsoft's success, I believe, and where Microsoft succeed where Google don't, and Amazon are beginning to change. You are seeing an enormous focus on the partnership relationships and the partner channel that Microsoft have. They're a partnering company, and actually, where Microsoft sometimes falls down is that they don't put enough effort behind their partners to be able to get more of them, to be able to drive some of their technologies into the marketplace and help us all with some of the cultural changes that we all need to do.
And Cheryl, I know that you emphasized a little bit about, when you're working in a consulting role and making sure that you're identifying the objectives of the business and what they need to have done and making sure they get the right tools. So I'm assuming this really resonates in the work that you're doing and what you're seeing with your clients is the need to help with these products or tools.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we come up, as I say, we're not specifically an IT provider. So what we're finding is IT companies are installing these tools. And then these companies are like, wow, what do we do with them? And as I say, the landscape is changing so quickly that no one can get their head around how it can work for them. They're trying to implement everything and perhaps not always succeeding to the best efforts. But again, it's around key business outcomes. What do you need to achieve as a business? What is your success criteria? And actually measuring that success as you go through. But for me, I think, and from our current way of working, what we're seeing is Teams is, I call it the gateway drug. It's going to be the 365 success going forward, because when you think of 365 and all the tools, OneNote, SharePoint, everything within it, it's really hard for a user to get their head around all these tools. But Teams, if it's embedded correctly, will enable them to get on board very quickly and be able to use these tools, not realizing that they're there, but to them it's just this single interface. And I think, but it's setting that up correctly and getting it implemented correctly. So it's success first time rather than just a kind of free for all, really.